They're amazing leaders.
Yeah.
They know exactly the granular reality of what it is to do your job.
And I'm standing right behind him. I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, it was pretty good. You got to have an environment of fun, but also hard work.
The person doing sales is in the weeds constantly. But someone who's doing the accounting, they're not really in that. They just see the numbers and the downstream effects of it.
You do that, you're a successful leader.
100%, because you're serving your people.
And here's something else, Bob. I have 8 different bosses right now.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Opportunity Podcast. Let's get right into it. Julian, is office space reflective of real life?
Slightly, yes.
Cool. Hogan, is it reflective of real life?
Unfortunately, yes.
Sevog, is it reflective of real life?
In more ways than not.
And unfortunately, I also agree. It is completely reflective of real life. Let's get right into it. Julian, go ahead.
I think it's I think it's like take on like bureaucracy and like how like going through 20 different middlemen to get something done. I think that's very reflective. I've had that experience a lot when like working in projects or just like work in general. And I've seen it happen to other people as well. This whole idea of like making everything efficient and going through a bunch of people so that everything can be perfect. I mean it works in theory. In theory on paper it works, but when you have like a bunch of people who are just basically slowing everything down, it makes things very tedious and very frustrating, and ultimately I think it like reduces your basically like your will to work. And that was like that was like a pretty big part of the movie as well. The guy was like so unmotivated to do anything because he was basically just being micromanaged the whole time. So yeah, I think that part is pretty reflective um of real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point also to the micromanaging and losing the will to work, right? And fun fact, the number one reason people quit jobs is bad management. If they have a bad manager, they're more likely than not to want to leave their job. Um, yeah, it's interesting about the going through 20 people also because as organizations get larger, more and more stakeholders come into the picture. And that means there's more and more people who have to sign off on something for anything to happen. It's actually why super large companies have a much harder time like pivoting or reacting to market trends because there's just so many decisions that need to be made.
I heard it's the same reason why for like the NASA rockets, they went with less engines because when you're trying to coordinate a bigger number of engines, there's more instability, more moving parts that go wrong. So they went from like 30 engines to like around 6.
Jeez.
So just like don't quote me on the details, but
Yeah.
just the principle of that is similar.
That's crazy. You know, during grad school, we actually read up on NASA and we read about two disasters. I forget one was earlier and
Challenger, one was Challenger in the 80s.
and the one was before that. I forget what it was though.
Just I don't know, yeah, I forgot
But
that. It was before our time.
Maybe it was Apollo or something. I don't know. Regardless, right? Basically, the idea the what we read about though was like management, right? Because MBA studying business management, and it was basically about how when disaster happened, NASA went to the like kind of corporate playbook, if you will, like the kind of this is the rule book you got to follow, and they kind of went that way with it. And the business management types came in, let's say, and just ran the disaster rather than letting the engineering types come in and kind of say, hey, these are the trade-offs, this is what we need to do, right? It's this perpetual battle that we see sometimes.
Between like the stakeholders slash accountants and the actual engineers that make the product what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, 100%, right? Because, and these are two competing interests, right? Because, you know, an administrator of a business is someone who basically wants to make sure all the numbers, everything reads properly and the business is growing, right? An
Mhm.
operator of the business wants the same thing, but they're doing it in the actual weeds, right? Like, it's like, imagine a business is run by someone doing sales and they have someone who does their accounting for them, right?
Mhm.
The person doing sales is in the weeds constantly, doing sales like nonstop. So they're really in it. But someone who's doing the accounting, they're not really in that. They just see the numbers and the downstream effects of it.
I find that, yeah, the lack of communication between departments and also the lack of shared like familiarity with what their functions are, what their
Yeah.
day-to-day jobs are.
Yes.
I find departments or like leaders where they kind of performed every function. They're amazing leaders.
Yeah.
They know exactly the granular reality of what it is to do your
A
job.
100%. 100%. To me, that's actually one of the most important things is kind of moving up through the ladders.
Yes, and what Julian said too, like the will to work, morale. Office space is largely a failure of employee morale, and that
Yes.
is a corporate failing. And not to say corporate is bad. I've worked in many office settings where it had like the good counterparts of Office Space. Now, granted, I had like the very asinine, redundant, wasteful parts of it too. But like where I am right now, very little micromanaging, but also that's partially on me and how well I'm doing my work and training people to be like, no, Seb's got it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like his track record's like good
Yeah.
kind of thing. So there's bits and pieces to it. I worked many horrible office jobs. My current office job is wonderful and is
Yeah.
very supportive
Good.
in some ways more than like my family has been. So it's like, so you know that creates very polar kind of like relationship building and stuff because like you've heard from many people like don't trust your coworkers, don't
Oh my
trust like
God.
your employees, you know, like you know what I mean? Don't
No.
but then sometimes those end up being your truest confidants, mentors, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So you got to take it with a grain of salt as well because not everyone's experience is the same everywhere.
100%. That's so true. You know, I've been fortunate enough to also meet a lot of people through work that have been amazing, dear friends of mine. Hogan, you've been kind of quiet. What's your thoughts?
Oh no, I just think unfortunately it can be reality in a lot of corporate settings. And for a multitude of reasons. I think you have people who are power hungry, that love to wield power every chance they get. Then I think you have people who are very um, um, unsure of themselves, and grasping to make sure that they don't lose whatever control or power they have. But I honestly believe it all comes back to leadership. It has to. And it rests at the foot of the leader to be able to look at this and really understand, is this the environment that we have? And if so, what do we got to do to change? I firmly believe, the old school way of leadership, like back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, of hollering and yelling and, the fear component, right? Kind of the old school football coach kind of mentality in your face. The days of that leadership are gone.
Yeah.
And so now it really falls on the leader to really become more aware of the different types of people that they have assembled around them.
Yeah.
But I think it all comes back to one word, like Savag was talking about, and it's unity, right? I think that being unified by your leader, that's the leader's job to get people connected to understand. Because, I've been a leader in a lot of organizations, and I've made mistakes in my leadership early on, thinking that it was about being in power and in control, and it's not. I think the number one advantage for a leader is to be aware.
Yes.
And that is, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the individuals you have, and be aware of the differences it's going to take to motivate each. And then figure out how to do that on the daily. You do that, you're a successful leader.
100% because you're serving your people, and that's really where leadership goes, right?
Right. What's interesting to me is in Office Space, the movie, they bring in these outside consultants,
That's
and even when they start even auditing
oh my
the
God.
managers, because one of the managers like just has a thing out for Peter, the protagonist of the movie. Like the consultants are just like, wow, man, there's like middle management written all over this guy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because he's telling them like, wow, you have 8 different bosses coming and telling you the same thing that you did wrong. So basically, your only motivation is to work just hard enough not to get fired. But then I see the boss is just concerned with defending and protecting his ego instead of being curious and open about his leadership feedback. And I'm just like, how many times in a corporate professional setting has someone power tripped instead of focusing on the solution? They focused on blame and covering their
Yeah.
skin than just focusing on the solution. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like when you have people that know that their only competition in life is themselves, they're working with people who think they're competing with everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's a leader's job to kind of rein that in and be like, no, 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 guys, that's not what this is about. It's
Yeah.
not about competing or pointing the blame finger because you always have 3 fingers pointing right back at you when you're
Absolutely.
pointing the blame finger.
Absolutely.
So I think, yeah, just to the point of morale,
Yeah.
employee morale, it falls on the leader. And it is very tough to be a
100%.
good leader.
Oh, tell me about it, bro. Yeah, it's really fascinating to talk about employee morale because when someone's demotivated from the work or in an environment that just they can't work in, like it makes it nearly impossible to want to do anything.
Hmm.
I've been in that situation where I was in leadership, and I was responsible for a whole lot of stuff. And it was very difficult at times because it was a very just, this kind of environment. And
Hmm.
we made it through as one does, right? Because you took on the responsibility, you have to. But it was something where I was like, all this unnecessary friction is frustrating, you
Hmm.
know? And really, as a leader, like, I think what makes a really good leader and a powerful leader, unlike an office space where you had seven bosses go say the same thing, where's my TPS report? I think what
Yeah.
makes a really good leader is understanding the ask. If you can understand the ask you're putting on your people, I think you then understand like what you're putting them through, so you can
Mhm.
empathize with them more, right? Because
Hmm.
ultimately, as a leader, like it's not so much about I'm the boss, my word goes. It's more about like what is my team doing and how can I ensure, kind of to Chris's point, right? How can I ensure they're doing the things they need to do and they're able to actually feel like they can do those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this, you hit on something that's two key points. One, as an outside consultant myself, being able to come in and you come in with a fresh pair of eyes.
Yeah.
And so you can see things that maybe the current leadership is too close to
Yeah.
see. But you can give some ideas and some feedback. What else is strange to me is I think as I go in as a consultant with these companies, I hear things from management. They'll tell me things that they haven't told their leader. And so it's amazing how people can open up when they come across someone that's truly wanting to know and wanting to help.
Yeah.
Second thing is there's a difference between a boss and a leader, right? And I think we get too many bosses. I've heard it said bosses yell and tell,
Oh my God.
Hmm.
but a leader asks and guides.
So true.
Okay. So don't be a boss, be a leader. And I think the movie Office Space has so many bosses in it
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can literally look at it and go, this is like a 7 layer dip of stupid,
Oh my
right?
God.
Because you begin to see the redundant and the unnecessariness, right? But that's people with the mindset of just big is better. No, efficient is better. Unity is better. Connection is better.
Hmm.
That's what'll help teams go.
Absolutely, absolutely agreed. So I read something once, I forget where I read this, that Goldman Sachs says we have our swords pointed out instead of inside. So imagine an entire
Mm,
organization of people, they're all working together to fight outwards rather than fighting inside,
Hmm.
right? And they're a very competitive bank, obviously, but like nonetheless, that idea and that culture, like there's something about that where it's like we're all kind of unified under the same goal, working towards the same thing. Because that's what an organization is at the end of the day, right? We all work in an organization, like we all work at your opportunity co. And the goal is we're doing this because we're trying to push forward our thing and trying to change resume screening and make it no longer a thing, right?
Right. And I think at some point in office space, they also get threatened with layoffs. And in my experience, like where I used to work, I will not name where.
Don't
But
please.
no, no, of course not. Like it was fine for a long time, for well over a year. But as soon as like the first wave of layoffs was announced, like the vibe, the office atmosphere completely shifted. Everyone suddenly felt like they're only looking out for themselves. And of course, a lot of this could we could look at as a leadership, like gap
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, they need to rally the team together and quell the uncertainty because then that's what breaks up unity. You
100%.
know what I mean? And it's like we get it, like businesses fall on hard times and stuff, but it is ultimately up to leadership to keep the tribe cordial and collaborative
Yeah,
and communicative instead of hostile, sabotaging. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's that's not going to be good for
yeah,
anyone.
yeah. Because then you basically become like I have to protect my own instead of trying to actually work together, right?
It becomes adversarial instead of collaborative.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things about being in business too. Is kind of to your point, right? Hard times happen, markets change, things shift, and so organizations and leadership has to make very difficult decisions, right?
Right.
Um, I don't love a lot of the layoffs that have been happening recently, like in tech, where they say AI is driving it. I don't think that's really the case. I think it's just a convenient excuse to cover their overhiring,
Hmm.
you know? And as a former finance pro myself, like I don't really like going to the layoff option. I view that as very much like a nuclear option because of what you're describing, right? It
Hmm.
destroys employee morale. You have to restructure the business, reorganize the business, and
Hmm.
more importantly, markets shift. That doesn't mean your talent isn't necessary, right? All
Yeah.
that institutional knowledge and all those relationships within the org that know, like, oh, I can rely on Sebog, for example, or vice versa, right? Like that just
Hmm.
goes away. That destroys an organization's like ability to be efficient. To Chris's point.
It's why I left Hollywood. I had to.
Yeah.
I had to eat, and the reliability was not there anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah,
You
I feel
know.
you on that. I feel you on that.
It is what it is.
Truly.
But yeah, the movie is still it ages like fine wine. It came out in 1999, but it's even with work from home, there's still a lot of this going on.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I have a story for everyone listening. So I did finance for a living before this, and we were going through an audit once. And it was a Friday, y'all. Friday. I got an email from an auditor. And I was in LA at the time, and this auditor was in, I think, the East Coast. Hey, so I need this report from you. I don't know, 2 hours later, one of my coworkers in corporate, hey man, I need this report from you. I think I went into the office that day also. My boss rolls by. Hey, by the way, that report. I died laughing. I even told my boss. My boss, he was like a dear friend, like a brother to me. I was like, bro, am I in office space? Like, what's going on? I laughed. I laughed. I pulled the report together, sent it off, and we were all good. But it was just so funny because it's like, and that was a remote environment. So to your point, like it still happens even in a remote environment, you
Oh
know?
my, right.
It's the,
And in some ways, like a lot of the office space redundancy is more prevalent in a work from home
yeah,
setting sometimes
yeah,
because you're not all just there in person. I can't just walk into your office and be like, "Hey, you got that thing? Hey, did you see that thing?"
yeah,
You know, whereas like they have to go on their teams,
yeah.
look at their notifications, which some people don't even do all day.
No, 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 no. And it just gets like piled up and whatnot, right? Inboxes become war zones.
To
Yeah.
me, I think Office Space is
No,
a wonderful cautionary tale. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's a great cautionary tale, and I think every single business, corporation, small business benefits from watching it
Agreed.
with their
Agreed.
employees,
Agreed.
leadership and employees together.
A team building activity.
It really is team building.
It might be, or
Oh no.
leaders oftentimes, unfortunately, can be so thin-skinned
Yeah.
that it holds team members back from communicating. And so, I would just say this, the difference between a boss and a leader. Quick story. I had was running a mortgage company at this time, way years and years ago, and I had a group. When I first took the company over, there were three people, there, and between the three of them, there was really one person there combined. So anyway, I went on a hiring spree and hired some guys and looking for the right people, right? Not just trying to hire bodies. Um, but I got hired some people, hired a good group. I mean, it took me about 3 months of searching and connecting and to find them. But hired this one guy, and his name was Freddie, and Freddie was a shorter black gentleman, and but he was hilarious. Just his energy was awesome, and so I was on a call, and so I wasn't there to kick off our staff meeting like I normally did every Monday. And so, there's like 20 people in there, and Freddie's in there, and he's deciding he's going to pretend to be me.
Okay.
And so Freddie's getting up. He goes, "All right, everybody. Today, what we're going to be doing, and everyone is cracking up and laughing. They're like, oh my gosh, and they're kind of looking out the window to see if I'm coming in out the door. Well, I'm standing to the side. I can hear him. And he goes, all right, now I need y'all to get out your notebooks. You need to take notes. I tell you stuff. I need you to remember. I mean, he's mocking me, but he is imitating me to a T. Like it
Oh
is
my
on
God.
point. I'm laughing.
Yeah.
And so he keeps going, and I walk in slowly. Everybody can see me but him.
Oh
And
no.
so he's like, all right. So the laughing stops when I come in the room, right? They don't know how am I going to respond. And so I walk up behind Fred and I'm just standing there and he's like, what's wrong with y'all? He can't see me, but nobody's laughing anymore. They're not playing around. He goes, come on, people. This is a good imitation. And I'm standing right behind him. I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, it was pretty good. Okay. First of all, the blood left his body. I know he needed another pair of underwear. Uh, he was just freaking, right? And so everyone's looking at me. He's looking at me, and he's like, it was in that moment that I realized I started laughing because it was funny, right? But I realized, in an office space type of environment, that could get someone fired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That a manager could choose to not have a sense of humor and be offended, right, and take it out on team members and hold grudges and these types of things, and that's the stuff leaders can't do.
Yeah.
You got to have an environment of fun, but also hard work. And
Yes.
so, as a leader, I tell people, as I often speak around the country on stages, right now, you all are looking at me because the lights are on me. But I need you to know when you're back in your office, you're on stage every day. The light is on you. They're watching you. You're teaching them how to communicate with you, how to trust you, and how to talk to you. So, as a leader, be on point with that and be proactive.
I love that. I love that. That's a great story. Chris, I have a question. Are you friends with Freddie still?
Yes, absolutely.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
It's that sounds like the kind of thing that would only work if you two were like had a good relationship kind of thing because like I work in an office where the humor is very unhinged. Like we talk about very crass things, but it works. Like even one of the coworkers was like, "Oh, it's that kind of workplace. You have to read the room
Yeah.
of what kind of work environment you're stepping into, where this is very much like." And also, I wanted to say this earlier when you work at a job, at a good job, or at your career, most of you are seeing your coworkers more than your own family members, Monday through Friday, sometimes 6 days a week, 7 days a week. You need to get along with these people.
Yes. Yes. Okay, now I'm gonna bring this thing full circle. Your opportunity co. So part of the reason why we exist, right? I mentioned this a little earlier. We're trying to get rid of the resume screen so you can use our assessments to actually see who you want to interview. Huge part of that is if you're gonna be in a position where you're gonna have to be working with these people and spend 40 hours plus a week with them,
Yep.
right? The thing you should spend the precious interview time on is can I get along with these people? Not so much can they do the job. Our assessments figure out can they do the job so you can focus on how do I get along with them? Because the real kind of thing that we're all getting out here is you have to have a good relationship with employees and management. Otherwise, the organization will collapse and fail.
You need a good team to solve problems with.
Exactly, 100%, right? You need to be able to work with each other. You need to understand each other.
Well, and even you as a leader, you have to have that skill of relationship building because that's what you're about.
Yes. Oh,
You know,
absolutely. I am
it's the
that.
people, the vendors,
Yeah.
the other businesses, the people. I mean, so yeah, you've really got to learn how to step outside of yourself as a leader and truly understand what is our mission, who are my people, and where are we headed.
100%, right? And as a leader, really, your job becomes kind of like, to Chris's point, you kind of keep the ship going, right? You provide direction. That's actually something I learned very early on in my career. I
Oh, real quick. So you asked me about, it was cool that I handled it that way, and I laughed with Freddie in that story. The reality is the younger Hogan, right out of grad school in the leadership role, would not have handled that well. I
Yeah.
would have been irritated,
yeah,
right?
I feel you.
And he would have known,
Yeah.
not on the spot, but I would have had a meeting unnecessarily, right? And so, say young Hogan does that meeting, and I chastise him, right, and I do all this. He's going to go in the tank. He won't be worth a damn for the next 2 months. Right. And odds are he's going to go look for another job. So the time, energy, and money I spent in recruiting and hiring would have been thrown out the window because of me as a leader.
See,
So, as Neima said, people don't leave a business, people leave a leader. So, you've got to become a leader that people want to work for.
Oof.
100%. Good point.
Humility and not taking yourself too seriously as a leader.
That's so true. That's so true. You know, Chris, kind of building on this actually. So one of my first leadership roles, I came to conclude the job that I had, I mean, I had my deliverables and all, but the main thing I was responsible for was giving direction to my team,
Mm.
right? Like we had to make financial statements on a monthly basis, and there was 20 companies. It was massive. It was a huge undertaking, right? Yeah, tell me about it. And cross currencies too, all the
Well,
finance people listening are just dying right now.
Oh, no.
But nonetheless, right? Like I had to provide accurate direction and actionable direction to my team. I had to be there for them in case they got like stuck along the way, right?
Mhm.
That was kind of what my job became as a leader. It was less so I'm the boss, so and so. It was more so like
Delegate.
yeah, it was done and delegate, but also be there for them, right?
Yeah.
Trust them, right? I feel like a lot of times leaders have a hard time trusting their staff. It's like, bro,
mm,
you hired them for a reason. Like you have faith they'll be able to do the job. Let them do the job, right? And we
Yeah.
learn.
well,
We're
and
humans. We
that's
can
the
learn.
key. That's you can't do that. You can't get to that framework and that mindset from looking at a resume.
100%.
Right, that tells you, it's kind of shows you what has happened, right? What you want to do is really get to know this person and talk with them about, hey, I understand the path you've been on, but where are you now?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go now? What's the next step?
Yeah.
And so, that's why, I think with what your opportunity code offers is that opportunity to be able to go deeper, quicker, to be able to really connect with them and really find out what they know and if they can work in the culture you want them to work in.
100%. Agreed. Agreed. All right,
Yep.
cool.